To watch The Mysterious Twins Part 1, see the link in the description below. The Mysterious Twins, Part 2.
After Bobby apologized to his family, he tried all within his capacity to be a good husband to his wife Patricia and a good father to his children Sasa and Zara. He was trying to know more things about Dr. Sasa in order to catch up with the old times. 2 months later, Bobby's mom, Mrs. Taylor, who had been with one of her children in another state, got to know about Bobby's illness and decided to visit. She had to arrive on the same day she heard about it because Bobby was the only son of Mrs. Taylor and she had a very strong bond with him. Bobby and his family were together in the sitting room talking and laughing, trying to build a family tie when she arrived. Based on the family mood at that period, everyone was glad to welcome her, while she got upset with the presence of Dr. Sasa. She asked Patricia why she brought her bastard child back to the family, which might be responsible for Bobby's illness. She accused Sasa of being the one that poisoned Bobby's food or water in order to gain entrance back to the family. Bobby was trying to calm his mom so he could explain things to her, but she wasn't given any chance to anyone to talk. Sasa was so upset and shouted on top of her voice to speak out. She told Grandma how she made Bobby her father left her to struggle from childhood till date, paying for the error she didn't commit and which she or her mom couldn't do anything to rectify, and as she continued to react to her grandma, she suddenly slumped. Zara, her twin sister, rushed to check on her, while Patricia asked Mrs. Taylor, her mother-in-law, what she actually wanted from her or the family. She accused her of being a bad influence to her son Bobby and explained how she had caused them so much havoc. She said Mrs. Taylor was the one that poisoned her own son to the rift she had caused in his life and marriage, which made him indulge in drinking and smoking secretly and finding solace for himself, which affected his kidneys. She explained how Sasa had to donate one of her kidneys to her father despite the ill treatment she got from him. Dr. Sasa was taken to the hospital where she works, and all hands were on deck to save her. All professionals in the hospital had to work together to see that nothing went wrong with Sasa. It was later discovered that she hadn't had enough rest since one of her kidneys was removed. Jack was very angry when he heard what Grandma did to his wife. He told the doctor not to allow anyone from the family to see his wife except her mother, Patricia. Sasa remained unconscious for 72 hours, and that period was very traumatic for Patricia, thinking her dear daughter would die. On the other hand, Mrs. Taylor was jubilating that the bastard child of the family had finally died. She kept on encouraging Bobby to move on with life as she wasn't his legitimate child. Since Zara, her twin sister, came back from the hospital, she locked herself up in the room without eating or talking to anyone. Mrs. Taylor always talked to her through the door to move on with her life, get married and give her grandchildren, but Zara never responded to any of her words. Bobby always checked on Sasa every evening at the hospital to know how she was doing despite the fact that he was denied entrance into her room, and as he arrived that evening one of the nurses told him that Dr. Sasa has regained her consciousness but was sleeping at that period. She then asked him to check back the following day. Bobby broke the good news to his mom and Zara on getting home. Zara, who had been inside her room for 3 days, opened the door and hugged her father as she was jubilating that her twin sister was alive. At the early hour of the morning, Bobby, Zara, and Grandma were at the hospital waiting to see Sasa. As they came into her room, Sasa said it's time to put all things right, and the only way that could be done was to do DNA tests to prove if she actually belonged to the family. Mrs. Taylor was so excited with the new development, but Bobby and the rest of the family were very sad. Bobby said to Sasa that she needed not to do that because he didn't need any proof to know that you are my biological daughter, and even if you are not, you are my daughter and you are even more than a child to me. You are my savior. You gave me another chance to be alive. Mrs. Taylor replied to Bobby in anger, saying no one is an island. Anyone can donate a kidney to save life, and if no one want to donate for free, we had enough money to buy one or more to keep living. She then said to Sasa to make sure that the DNA must be carried out to prove where you legitimately belong. Dr. Sasa immediately called Dr. Anna to do the DNA test for them. The samples were taken for the test immediately while they await the result. Dr. Sasa was discharged the same day as she requested, and everyone left for their different houses except Patricia, her mother, that went with Sasa to her home. That same day, Mrs. Toller, the grandma, came back to the hospital to see Dr. Anna. She begged her to change the DNA test result against Dr. Sasa, explaining how disgusting her stature was to her, and offered to pay a huge amount of money to get that done. Dr. Anna agreed to do just that, as she had been looking for an opportunity to hit Dr. Sasa because of her fame and her intelligence, which had been a threat to her in so many ways. As Dr. Sasa was arriving at the hospital with Jack, her husband, and Patricia, her mother, to collect the DNA test result, Bobby was also driving into the hospital with his mom, Mrs. Toller, and Zara, her daughter. Dr. Anna welcomed them to her office as she handed the result over to Dr. Sasa so she can read it out to everyone and explain it to them. Sasa was shocked at the DNA result that showed that she didn't belong to the family, and instead of her to read the result out as expected, she thus asked her mother who her real father is. Patricia got worried as she snatched the result out of her hand while she asked Dr. Anna to read and explain the result to them. Dr. Anna said DNA result showed that Dr. Sasa didn't belong to this family. Patricia couldn't believe what she just heard, and as she was trying to explain how unbelievable that could be to them, Bobby walked out of the office. While Grandma said she knew that Sasa was never a member of the family and she wasn't surprised about the result at all. She laughed scornfully as she went out also. Zara held her twin sister's hand, Dr. Sasa, and said to her that if everyone abandoned you, I would not. She promised to stay with her and remain her family forever for the fact that they came out of the same womb together. Patricia couldn't alter a word, knowing fully well that no one would believe her. Jack pleaded with Sasa to let them go back home, since she hadn't resumed back to the office as she was still instructed to have some rest. Patricia and Zara went with Jack to their house. On getting to the house, Patricia went straight to her room, packed all her luggage to move out of the house. She then begged her daughters to forgive her for the sin she didn't know how it was committed, and also to let go of the pain that would come with it. She said she would go somewhere far away from them and her husband Bobby to allow everyone to heal. Jack, Sasa's husband, and Sasa begged Patricia not to go away from them, explaining that she was the only parent Sasa had even from childhood, and she was the reason Sasa was alive and was this successful. Zara also pleaded with her and told her not to explain anything to them concerning this issue, because life's experiences had taught her that life itself is a mystery. The news of what happened was everywhere in the city and everyone was amazed. Zara went to her father to beg him to reconcile with his wife Patricia and Sasa, but Bobby vowed never to have anything to do with them ever again. Zara then said to Bobby that he would have to cut ties with her as well, because she had also vowed to stay with her sister in this trying period and remain her family forever. Bobby's health became unstable as he was affected by all the incidents and how unfaithful Patricia had been to him in their relationship. His mother, Mrs. Toller, gave him unwavering attention and care as he was going through the trying moments. Bobby lost focus on all his businesses as he was emotionally and mentally affected. And Zara, on the other hand, had stopped going to the office often as well because she couldn't face the rumor of the happenings in their home. 6 months later, one of the big shareholders of the company, Chief Ivan, took advantage of the situations and talked all other shareholders into selling their shares to him. His plan was successful as he owned the lion's share of the company overnight. He sacked Zara as he installed his own son as the financial director of the company. Bobby felt so betrayed and his health deteriorated the most. One fateful morning, as Bobby was trying to get up from the bed, he discovered that he couldn't move any part of his body anymore. He called his mom to check on him. Mrs. Toller bursted into tears as she understood that he had been paralyzed. Moments later, Mrs. Toller started giving attitude because of the loads of work on her and the effect of his illness on their finance. Their income had drastically reduced, because of the change in the ownership of the company, and the little money they were gotten from the company had been channeled into the hospital bill. 1 year later, Mrs. Toller packed all her luggage as she informed Bobby of her decision to return to her home, explaining how difficult it's becoming for them to eat and to fund his daily drugs. Bobby begged his mom not to abandon him to himself, as she was aware that he couldn't move his body by himself anymore. Mrs. Toller refused to listen to his plea as she took her bag out one after the other. When Bobby saw that she was firm in her decision, he then pleaded with her to take him to the international hospital where Sasa works. Mrs. Toller said she had decided never to set her eyes on Sasa again forever. Bobby continued to plead with his mom until she gave in to his request. Bobby was taken to the international hospital, and on arrival, he requested to see Sasa. He was told that Sasa had closed for the day and would be on duty by 2 p.m. the following day. He was immediately admitted for treatment because his case was quite bad. Mrs. Toller decided to stay with Bobby till the following day before leaving for her own house. Few hours later, she left for Dr. Anna's office. She appreciated her for what she did for her previously and how she had helped her to accomplish her plan to chase Sasa out of Bobby's life. She then asked her if she had the original DNA test result. Dr. Anna said to Mrs. Toller that she had kept it well in the table drawer, waiting for her to come back for it, as we agreed earlier. As she wanted to bring it out from her drawer, Nurse Lizzie entered her office to invite her to one of the director's office. She immediately asked Mrs. Toller to come later or see her tomorrow before she leaves. Dr. Sasa resumed duty in the morning as against the duty roster because she was invited for an emergency case. Nurse Lizzie sought to see her immediately as she explained what she overheard her grandma and Dr. Anna discussed about the previous DNA test result. Dr. Sasa couldn't believe what she heard as she immediately invited the hospital security men to conduct a search in Dr. Anna's office. To everyone's surprise, the original DNA test result was found in Dr. Anna's table drawer, which showed that Bobby was the real father to Sasa. The police were invited to arrest Dr. Anna and Mrs. Toller, Sasa's grandma. Sasa put calls across to her mom Patricia, her twin sister Zara, and her husband Jack to come to the hospital. All of them went to see Bobby and explained things to him. Bobby felt so bad as he pleaded for forgiveness from every one of them. Patricia and Zara accepted his apology, while Sasa told Bobby that she had accepted her fate, that she had no father, and the decision would never change. Bobby cried bitterly to express his regret, but Sasa remained adamant with her decision. Sasa and Jack decided not to regard Bobby as a member of the family ever again. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to this channel.
I love you.